We are. We're Visionary Solutions. We're a manufacturer of hardware, and we develop software for network video systems and solutions. And we focus in the corporate, education, enterprise, entertainment, government, healthcare, hospitality, house of worship, and information technology markets. In a phrase, we enable video in your workflow. So if you're wondering where we are, we're located in Santa Barbara, California, at the Riviera Research and Technology Park that overlooks the Pacific. And just as a side note, we design and manufacture all our equipment in the United States, and we support our equipment in the U.S. So here's a quick timeline or history of our organization. Visionary Solutions was founded in 1995. And our initial focus was OEM camera manufacturing, particularly for medical, dental, and security. We developed cameras for Pelco and Henry Schein, among others. In 2004, we entered the IPTV market with launching our AVN 200 MPEG-2 encoder. In 2007, we released our AVN 400 series, our H.264 HD encoders. And you can see here our AVN 422, 441, and 443. 2014 has been a very busy year for us, and we launched our Packet TV IPTV system at NAB, and that resulted in a TV Technology Best of Show Award. Also in 2014 in May, Visionary was launched into space. Our AVN 443 encoder was incorporated into NASA's HDEV, the High Definition Earth Viewer. And here's a YouTube video. Let me try if I can see if I can get this to play. Maybe not. Well, anyway, later I'll show you a live feed of from Ustream of the HDEV going through our encoders. And of course, in June 2014, we partnered with BTX, and we solidified that relationship at Infocom. So I just want to do a quick overview of the elements of an IPTV system. As you can see, it's encoding, middleware, and decoding. Encoding is simply converting video to IP to bring video onto the network, specifically an IP network. Middleware is obviously the part in between encoding and decoding, and that's for video stream and video asset management. And that's specifically what Packet TV is responsible for, and we'll get deeper into that in a moment. On the decode side, that is simply taking video off the network and displaying it, whether it's through a set-top box, a tablet, a large format display, or a PC or workstation. So here's an overview of our Packet TV system, a truly modular end-to-end IPTV video solution. On the left-hand side, you'll see the video sources that are ingested into the system. They can be linear channels like the History Channel, Discovery, A&E, CNN. Additionally, they can be pre-recorded programming in the style of a bank of DVD players, and also live events that are filmed and encoded through our encoders. Typically, at the head end, you'll see our MPP 1700 enclosure, that houses several AVN encoders. On the display side, as I mentioned before, that we're able to deliver high-quality video to mobile devices, to large format displays using our Packet TV STV, as well as Apple and Windows-based PCs and workstations utilizing our Packet TV player. So what we'll be focusing on today is our Packet TV system. The core system is comprised of a portal, player, and mobile player. And the portal itself is for administration of the system and delivery of the various services. The player is it's an internet browser, either Safari or Internet Explorer, Firefox, and even Chrome, that's used as a player, used for decoding. This system is modular, so you can start out small with our core system and then build on top of that. And the modules that we have available right now are the video on demand modules, network video record, the set-top box management, and an electronic programming guide. So let me bring up the player itself, and I'll show you the various components of the player. If you see on the left-hand side, there are two tabs. Again, this is Internet Explorer with an ActiveX control to form the player itself. And on the left here, you see the live and record channel lineup, as well as the video on demand. It's quite simple to go into groups and choose your video on demand assets and play them. I'm not sure how the quality looks to you guys, but when you see this live, it's actually quite impressive. And if you look below here, there are a number of features that you can select the channels and go through the channels. You can pause as well as play and stop. Here is your ability to control the volume. Over here is a really neat feature. It's called grid selection. So say you were in a circumstance where you needed to see multiple streams or multiple files at the same time, that you can select this, select your grid, go into the specific video that you want to view, select where it should run, I guess GoToMeeting doesn't really like this strategy. So as you can see here, this is a lineup of live streams as well as recorded streams. So if you had a number of linear channels that you're pulling off the air and converting into IP, this is where you would select them to choose to view them. It's really quite easy to install this system and also to deploy the player. And the system itself was developed with IT in mind, and that it's Windows-based. The primary server is Windows-based. The VOD server is actually Linux-based, but it's quite simple. Doesn't require a lot of interaction from administrators or IT personnel. Another feature of the player, if we look into settings, you can change the aspect ratios. You can also create a channel carousel. So if you wanted to loop through all of your channels, that's where you would set this. So let's move over to the portal itself. Now, this is, as I mentioned before, is where the administration is taken care of, and as well as the setup of the system. And one of the great features of this product is that out of the box it integrates with Microsoft Active Directory. So if you have a client or customer that is using a Microsoft domain, that installing the system and integrating it into the AD is quite simple, and you can rely upon the user permissions and the group permissions to regulate who can see what. So for example, if folks were to log on to their player from their workstation, that their logon credentials their Microsoft logon credentials would dictate what they would be able to view. And not only is this a great security feature, it's also a great way to organize video assets so that folks can get to what they want to see quickly without having to scroll through an extensive channel lineup. So for example, you have a human resources department and they want to provide very specific training videos for specific groups. They can assign the videos to those specific groups. And the groups are actually created in this pane right here. So as I was alluding to the HR training. So this is a full list on the right-hand side of the available streams and videos, and you would just simply need to go through and select which ones you wanted to associate with the HR training group. Very simple. Static channels. This is the location where you would set up a new channel. Say, for example, you had a high-definition camera with one of our encoders associated with it for specific live events. Say it's a school with a morning announcement, or a school with a sporting event that they use this camera card to film the event. You would set that up here. And it's really quite simple. You assign the channel type, whether it's a transport stream of video or what have you, the channel number, the name, description of the channel itself. And also here you have the ability to assign the channel to an electronic program guide. One of the an additional great feature of this program is the electronic program guide. It's very similar to what consumers see when using a cable box or dish network, and we have a relationship with the aggregating service called Tribune, which provides the metadata associated with the various channels, and I just want to dive in and show you that. So this is the location within the configuration pane where the system actually is set up to go out to the Tribune server, and this is actually the IP address of the Tribune server to pull down that information. Additionally, administrators can use a watch folder or can manually update the electronic program guide by creating a CSV file which has the relevant channel information that can be integrated into the overall EPG channel guide itself. Dynamic channels, it's a little more complex, but this is a circumstance where you have, say, an IP camera for, I don't know, security, or it can be a focus group room, can be anything really that's not online all the time, and that you would set this up so that you would be able to, when that asset became available or that camera became available, it would be available in the player itself. This is, again, the electronic program guide. So when a channel is set up, you can come in here and actually pull down the relevant channel to associate it with the local channel so that it's available in the program guide itself, and also pulling the information from the Tribune service. Video on demand. So this is a great system. It is, as I mentioned before, it's Linux-based, and also it has the capability of mapping to a network drive or using a network-attached storage. So in the past, the typical methodology for video on demand is that you would purchase a video on demand server, say with 2 terabytes of space. You fill that up, and then you have to upgrade to another one, and then you fill up another one, on and on. In this case, you can, upon install, that you can connect to the local virtualized storage pool, and that So they essentially, you can almost have infinite video-on-demand files. So bringing video-on-demand files into the system is really quite easy. You just choose Assets. You browse to a location. You select the file. This is a really small file, shouldn't take long. And once the file is uploaded to the VOD server, you need to give it a name. Well, actually the name is going to be associated with the file name. You need to give it a description and then associate it with a content group that was set up here. Once that is done, this video-on-demand file is going to be associated with this group. The users associated with these groups are able to see that using the player.
Andrew?
Yes?
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Can it be added via a watch folder for video on demand?
A watch folder. Well, yeah, actually, if you, the way it would work, it wouldn't be a watch folder in the same way that the EPG folder works, where it actually looks to that folder and it sweeps in the information. What it would be is that upon setup of the VOD server, that you would point the server to a specific folder, and then that folder is accessible by individuals depending on what the administrator decides. So if say you had a number of people that had access to that folder, and they could literally drag and drop a new video into that folder, and then somebody would have to come in, discover the assets, and this process would go to that location, look for the new file, and then you would bring it into the system. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I got it perfect.
Thanks, Kim. So you can layer network video recording on top of video on demand, and that's essentially taking a live stream and recording it, and you can view the live stream while it's being recorded. When it's recorded, it's being converted into a video on demand file. And the setup for that is really quite simple. You can actually set it up so that it can be triggered from the electronic program guide. You can set it up in the future. You can start it now. You have to select which channel is actually going to be recorded. Give it a name, description, when it's going to start, etc., and so forth. Again, quite powerful, really quite easy to use. So the emergency channel is it's really an override. Say you have a digital signage display or digital signage player on the network and that you use to communicate emergency information, say to students, to employees, etc. And there's an event, say a tornado, and you want to communicate that across all the available displays. You would simply go in here, assign either the channel of the player itself or the IP of the player, and then you would activate it so that basically anybody that's using the system would see, would be forced to switch to that channel, or the channel would override what they were currently viewing. It's a very effective way to distribute a message out to folks. The display, this is quite simply just the location where you're able to rebrand the player, either rebrand the player for yourself or for your customers. So you'd be able to pull in a custom logo and change the color scheme, and also add a little information when in the ticker, so when people log on, they're going to see this. So configuration, this is really an important section of the system. And as you can see here, this is a, when I showed you earlier about the mosaic, the player grid, one of the issues with the player grid is that you have to be concerned about maximum CPU usage. That once you get over four panes or mosaics, that the potential of conking out the or overwhelming the processor is considerable. So you need to govern it and say, usually it's a safe bet to create a ceiling of about 70% usage, so that the end user receives a warning when they get to this point, so they won't continue to add videos to the mosaic. This is a snapshot folder where you have the ability in the player itself, let me show you, to take a snapshot of the screen, and that comes in handy sometimes when you're documenting the system. And so that you need to set that location on the network, and this is where you would do it. Here's the setup section for VOD. Basically what you need to do is create a connection between the Packet TV core server and the VOD server as well, and this is where it happens. Packet TV is very sensitive to time, so it's really important to have a time server, an NTP, or a time server set up on the network, and this is where you would do that. Securities and permissions. This is the location where you create the integration between Packet TV and Active Directory. So you need to set up a Packet TV account on the AD and supply the credentials here, and also set up the time when that synchronization occurs. Also down here is a very important area. Encryption. This is where you would set up an encryption key, so that the streams going from the encoders out all the way through to the decoders is encrypted, and this is where that happens. Right below this is just the location where you would manage the administrative password and power user password for the Packet TV system. I mentioned the SAP. This is Session Announcement Protocol, and this is where you would set that up. And again, I showed you the electronic program guide section. We also have a fairly extensive activity log. Obviously, not much has been going on in this system, so there hasn't been much logging. And this is where you can, particularly when you're integrated with Active Directory, this is where you can see what's happening, who's accessing the system, and what they're accessing. And we extend that even further using a report module that allows you to extensively report on users' activities, and also by stream and by video. And this is important for compliance. So you have a financial services firm as a client, or a school that, or if an HR department wants to make sure that folks are watching the videos that they're required to, this is the area you would use to confirm that. Any more questions, Kim?
I'd like to encourage people to ask any questions if they have them, but we haven't gotten any others in just yet.
Okay. Just wanted to bring up the high-definition Earth viewer. Here's Ustream, and this is actually live. The The HDEV, the high definition Earth viewer, is a series of 4 cameras, and there's a switch that is used to switch among the 4 cameras, and behind that switch sits our AVN 443 encoder, and the selected camera or stream is then sent down to Earth and then distributed back through the internet. And we can see right here that the International Space Station is now in the middle of the Atlantic. Just before we started this demo, it was right over New York. So if there's anything else that folks would like to ask me to cover, I'll certainly do that. Please chime in.
Hey, Andrew, the
Yes.
video record and the program guide tabs shown on the demo that you're given, are these add-on modules or do these come with the core system?
That's a good question. So the core system is actually the Packet TV player, the Packet TV server, or the Packet TV portal, excuse me, as well as the mobile player. The additional modules are the VOD system, the network video record system, as well as the electronic program guide and the set-top box management.
Great. All right, well, certainly a very exciting product. BTX is thrilled to have this latest solution in our bag. And for everybody who is on the webinar, again, if you would like a more in-depth webinar or would like one of us to come out to your site to do a lunch and learn or a live demonstration, it's something that we certainly are always willing to do. Another question just came in. So was there a set-top box module in this demo?
There is a set-top box module. However, it's difficult, if not impossible, to show the STB module through GoToMeeting. And essentially, what that is that it's an image that is installed on a set-top box that looks very similar to the player itself that you would see in an internet browser, and you're able to use the remote control with the STB to select the various channels or the video-on-demand files.
Andrew, could you go into a bit more detail on the storage pool for the video-on-demand component? Is it scalable over time?
Again, there are 2 options here that you can use. The standard approach with video-on-demand, where you can purchase a server with a specific storage capacity, and then you have to upgrade the server itself, or you can use a storage area network or a network attached storage system, so that upon install in the video-on-demand server itself, you would point to those locations, and then the video-on-demand system is independent of the storage. Does that make sense? So the storage the storage area network is infinitely scalable if it's in place, so that the video-on-demand system that we provide is not contingent upon that. So it can be done, as I said, 2 ways. Either using, we can ship it as a physical server, or we can ship it as a virtual machine, and it can point to its local storage, or it can point to a network drive or a storage area network.
Sure. So what you're really saying is it's something you can buy when you first buy the system from BTX and Visionary Solutions, or you can just do an off-the-shelf NAS.
Correct. Correct. You know, one other point I'd like to make is that this system is very ideal for virtual environments, that we can deploy both the core system as well as the video on demand system as a virtual machine, and then it can be integrated into a data center or to a client system that's already virtualized. And then you can extend that functionality further. Typically, most virtual environments have some sort of pooled storage, and so when you would install the virtual video on demand machine, that's when you would point to that resource, and then you can add storage almost infinitely at that point. It's really contingent upon the shared storage resources of the network.
Sure. All right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
If you want to talk more about the storage, I'll let you go because this is going to change subjects on you.
That's fine. So, again, if you were, we're in the IPTV portal, and that we're selecting a file to upload. Right now, it's just pointing to my desktop. If it was configured for a map drive, it would you would see that mapping right here. If it was pointed to a virtualized storage resource, you would see that here also. So your next question?
So on the head-end side, do you
Yes.
provide a server that includes cable tuner cards for decrypting Comcast, Time Warner, etc., rather than having to use their set-top boxes for the upstream of the system?
Well, there are a couple of ways of managing that. You can encode the signal that's coming in, and then you're free to use whatever set-top box you wish to use, if that makes sense. So that once the video stream is on the network, then we can manage it within IPTV and use the IPTV set-top boxes. So then at the head end, that relationship with the content or cable provider or satellite provider would be taken care of. So once it's on the network, then it's managed through this system, so you wouldn't have to use the provider's set-top box, which is typically using coax. So what you would see, what a user would see is, in their channel lineup, the available linear channels that have been encoded or brought onto the network using a gateway. So the say Discovery channel would be viewable on the set-top box in the same way that it's viewable on a laptop or a workstation. Like here's an example. You have, again, a financial services client, and a lot of the traders, even in a medium-sized or smaller shop, will be watching Bloomberg on one screen and watching the trades on another. So you can encode or convert to IP Bloomberg at the head end and then distribute it to set-top boxes or to just the individual user's mobile device or to their workstation. It's really quite flexible. It's very easy to manage once the content is actually on the network and managed by this system.
So here's another question for you. Is this solution suitable for a small rural cable system?
A small rural cable system. Well, it depends. I mean, we'd need to know more. Our visionary solutions and is an ideal for working with a small cable provider, and this, depending on the requirements, could potentially also work well for them. But obviously, we'd need more information because it's a pretty, it's a complex
yeah, that question has
architecture.
So we'll definitely follow back up with the person who asked it. And then I think we have one more question, and that is, can you talk about the warranty of the system?
The warranty. Well, there are two sides to that. There's the hardware itself is, holds a warranty, and you can extend that warranty. There's also the way it works with the IPTV system entirely is that we have a there's a mandatory support and annual subscription. So to continue to use the system after year one, that you have to have a support and subscription in place. Fully comprehensive. We are constantly developing the system in all our systems, so that that covers that activity, and so we would provide updates, upgrades within the context of that relationship. We have what's called packet TV protection or system protection that can, if somebody's buying a new system, they can cover the hardware and the software. If that would be something they prefer. And we've had a lot of positive feedback about that. It's very comprehensive. Our support's excellent, very responsive, and again, we should probably follow up with that to get into greater detail.
Sure, absolutely. So we're going to go back to the question about taking signals from cable companies. So
sure.
The follow-up question. So do you provide the encoding layer for getting the signal from the incoming provider coax on to the network?
We are looking into, we have partners that can do that. It really, it depends on the system. If, if we're talking about, say, DRE or COM 1000, which is a, cable head end, that we can function with that system. We are looking into a gateway that would actually have cable cards in it to provide that sort of encoding, to take the QAM signal and convert it to IP at the head end, and that should be sorted out by the end of this quarter. But right now, there are a number of methods for us to manage that.
Great.
And it really depends on the number of programs, the number of channels, who the provider is. But this is the kind of thing that we encounter on a regular basis, in that this is actually a step in the system architectural design process before we get into the or under the hood of packet TV.
Okay. So anybody who has any questions like this should certainly reach out to their outside salesperson. If you don't know who that is, I think everybody on the call has my email address, kimr@btx.com, and I can certainly help make sure that you're in contact with the right person. Again, demos through WebEx, demos live and in person. We're here to help. We're here to try and help understand the system and find solutions. Obviously, Andrew is a great resource. And if there are no other questions, I think we we'll end this for today. But we will be.
Kim, can I interject one thing?
You may.
Thank you. So if there are any recommendations about a deeper dive into certain areas of the system, I'd love to get that sort of feedback. This is really a pretty superficial overview of the system, and I'm hoping to provide sort of modular WebExes that dive into particular modules or particular parts of the system that are a bit more in depth. And if anybody has any suggestions along those lines, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely.
Or hear them.
Absolutely. And Andrew, thank you again for working with BTX on this webinar. We certainly want to continue to educate all of those folks out there. And thank you again. We look forward to doing it again very soon.
Thanks, Kim, and thanks, everybody.